The last example of layering we are going to look at is a special case of layering called air layering. As you guys probably know by now, the sign of a plant that prefers to be propagated by layering is if it falls over onto the ground and makes roots where it touches the ground. Some plants have that ability, but will never actually fall to the ground. For example, this macadamia nut. Many trees can actually be propagated by air layering, which basically means instead of the plant going to the ground, you bring the ground to the plant. So this is an air layer that we took several months ago. The process of air layering, as you will see in a second, is to cut the bark off a 1-inch diameter of a branch that's about that thick, about a half an inch in thickness. As you can see, there's wood chips on here, and if we start to unravel this, I'm going to actually cut this off for you, and I'm going to show you. Macadamia is really hard wood, by the way. So this here is a macadamia air layering, and as you'll see, this part right there is where I stripped the bark. I stripped the bark and I put a little rooting hormone, and then I wrapped it in wood chips. Then I tie a plastic bag around it, and 3 months later you can see there's new roots forming all around the cut. We'll take this as a tree and we'll plant it. And now we have a new macadamia nut. The final example of layering was the special case, which is the air layering. As you can see, the root form is here now. It's quite a fair amount of a root ball, and this is a macadamia and the leaves are on top. First thing I'm going to do is cut off the stuff below the root ball. Again, what we did to do this was we stripped some of the bark about that wide around, and then we painted it with a little rooting hormone and wrapped it in a plastic bag filled with moist wood chips. And in that moist wood chip medium, the roots start to form. Now you have a couple of different options. I personally think, because I'll put this in a bag first, I might actually prune back some of this macadamia. So keeping the blade on the bigger side, I'm going to take that off. I'll take that off, and I'll actually take all of that off. And even though it's going to be a little small at first, it's going to spend a couple of months in the bag. To be honest, this is quite a small bag, but I'm still going to plant it in there. So what I'll do is I'll get it in. Because it's growing a little bit this way, I'm going to put it a little bit leaning that way, get it in there, support it with one hand, try to keep the bag open as much as possible, and fill it with the other. Use at every fill, use the weight of the bag to push the soil down to get that flat bottom and to really make sure the soil grips the roots that are starting to form. When I say flat bottom, that means you don't want to have the bag dropping like that. You want to have it dropping flat down to really, so that way when you leave it alone, it's a standalone and it doesn't fall over. So that's an air layering. Air layering is a really powerful technique, which we'll have another video to show the details of. But on many fruit trees where you might think of the fruit, for example the macadamia, the nut could be planted, but it takes a lot longer for the tree to develop. On the other hand, doing an air layering allows you to make multiple new macadamia nut trees from one tree, and you see in a period of 3 to 6 months we'll have a nice sized tree here ready to plant.